Lonely rancher bought a deaf girl sold by her drunk father, then realized she heard. Have you ever witnessed a moment so unjust that it made you want to change someone's life forever? If you've ever felt invisible, abandoned, or voiceless, this story is for you. Stay with us till the end, and you'll see how even the most silent hearts can speak the loudest. And if this touches your soul, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We tell stories that remind you the world still has hope. Clayton Ward was a man of few words and many wounds. A solitary rancher in his mid-40s, he lived in the rolling wilderness of Wyoming, surrounded by open skies and aching silence. Years ago, he had lost his wife to a wildfire and buried the dreams of fatherhood in the same soil where he laid her to rest. Since then, he'd poured every bit of himself into working the land, keeping cattle, and avoiding anything that reminded him of what he once wanted, a family. One cold afternoon, Clayton had to drive into the neighboring town of Bridger's Bend to pick up some supplies. It was the kind of place where gossip traveled faster than the wind, and secrets couldn't hide for long. But that day, something else traveled even faster. Rumors of a man trying to sell his daughter behind the saloon. Clayton didn't believe it at first. Even in a rough town like Bridger's Bend, no father would do that, would he? But when he stepped around the back of the old saloon, there she was. A girl. Maybe 11 or 12. Small, pale, with soot on her face and hair tangled like old rope. Her clothes didn't fit in her eyes. They were distant, hollow, like she had already left the world behind. And beside her stood her father, drunk, yelling, shaking a bottle, shouting nonsense about her being useless, broken, and no good to anyone because she can't hear. He kept saying the word deaf like it was a curse. Clayton didn't speak. He stepped forward, took out his wallet, threw the man a few bills, not as payment, but as a distraction. Because in that moment, he didn't care about the rules of men. He only knew that no child should be left there, not even for another second. The man snatched the money, cursed them both, and staggered away. The girl didn't react. Not a blink, not a movement. Clayton knelt beside her and tried to speak gently. "What's your name, sweetheart?" She didn't answer. "Do you know where your mama is?" Still no answer. And that's when the bartender's wife stepped out and whispered, "She's deaf, sir. Has been since she was little. Doesn't talk much either." Clayton looked into those eyes again. Eyes that had seen too much and expected nothing. He didn't say anything more. He just offered her his coat. She hesitated, then slowly took it. They drove back in silence. The girl didn't look out the window, didn't cry, didn't speak. At the ranch, Clayton set up the guest room, his late wife's old sewing room, turned cozy with old quilts and lavender-scented candles she had left behind. It was the first time someone had slept there in years. For the first few weeks, it was like living with a ghost. She wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't eat at the table, and wouldn't respond to anything he said. But she also never made trouble. She woke up early, watched the animals, and sometimes traced shapes in the dirt. He found out her name from an old ID card in her torn backpack, Ellie. Clayton began writing things down. Instead of speaking, he'd write short notes and hand them to her. "Breakfast is ready. You can help me feed the calves if you want. This is your home now. You're safe." Sometimes she nodded. Most times she just stared. But she was reading them. That much he knew. One morning, he left a note that simply said, "Do you like horses?" When he came back that afternoon, he found the note returned on the kitchen table. She had scribbled below it, "Yes." That one word changed everything. From that day, she started following him into the barn. Watching. Learning. She never made noise, but she began brushing the horses, cleaning the stalls, even gently feeding the foals from her hands. Clayton watched her begin to shine in that silence. For the first time in years, he started humming again. Even talking aloud, to her, to himself, to the world, just to fill the air with something warm. And then one afternoon, something happened that made him freeze. He was tightening a saddle strap when he swore under his breath and dropped a wrench. "Damn it," he muttered, rubbing his hand. Ellie turned her head toward his voice. Not just turned, but flinched, then looked directly at him. He said nothing at first. Just tested it again. Ellie, he said, softly. She looked at him. He stepped closer. Whispered, "Can you hear me?" She didn't respond. He tried again. "Ellie, blink if you can hear me." She blinked, twice. Dash dash dash. They drove into town the next morning. A specialist at the clinic confirmed what Clayton now suspected. Ellie wasn't completely deaf. She had significant hearing loss, but she could hear some sounds in low frequencies, deep voices, metal clinks, and even low guitar strings. The reason she never spoke was because no one had ever taught her how. Her father had assumed she was broken. Everyone else had believed it. So she believed it too. But she wasn't broken. She just needed someone to believe she wasn't. Dash dash dash. Clayton enrolled her in special speech and hearing therapy in town. They started going every Wednesday. She learned slowly how to form words, how to listen, how to read lips, how to trust herself. It was hard, exhausting, and sometimes she cried in frustration. But she kept going. One night, months later, after a storm passed over the ranch, Clayton heard something soft outside his door. He stepped into the hall. There she stood, barefoot, pajamas too big. She looked up at him, nervous but determined, and then, in a whisper so gentle it nearly broke his heart, she said, "Thank you, Daddy." He fell to his knees. Tears filled his eyes. He didn't even realize how much he needed to hear that word again, how much it healed inside him. Dash dash dash. Years passed. Ellie grew up strong, kind, and beautifully stubborn. She learned to ride, to herd, to cook his favorite chili recipe better than he ever could. She found her voice, through words, gestures, art, and compassion. And Clayton, he wasn't lonely anymore. He adopted her officially when she turned 15. At the courthouse, she insisted on wearing a hat just like his. When the judge asked if she understood what the adoption meant, she looked at Clayton, smiled, and said, "It means he's mine forever." Dash dash dash. So if you're watching this and feeling like no one sees you, remember Ellie. Remember that even if the world has tried to silence you, your voice still matters. You're not broken. You're becoming. So like this video, subscribe to the channel, and never forget. Sometimes, the quietest hearts carry the loudest love. And sometimes, the family you're meant to have is just waiting for the day they finally find you.